Hello there, it's 7 Edition and I'm Otto Othman. These are your main stories this evening. 4 suspects remanded over Sungai Selangor odor pollution and 40 barrels of chemical waste found. COVID-19 cases below 4 digits for 4th day in a row. Hong Kong opposition lawmakers all quit after 4 members ousted. Four suspects linked to the latest water pollution incident in Sungai Selangor have been remanded for 7 days beginning today. They include 2 directors of a roadworks construction company and 2 of their workers.
Magistrate Nur Hafizah Rajuni issued the remand order against the 4 suspects to facilitate a probe following their arrest in the early hours of today. The 40-year-old woman and a 43-year-old man, who are the company directors, and the 2 workers are accused of mischief by causing a diminution in the supply of water. Upon conviction, they face a minimum jail term of 5 years, but with a maximum of 30 years and a fine under the Penal Code. Earlier, initial investigations found that the woman was a nominee registered under the company's Commission of Malaysia who rented a premises at Jalan Velox 2, Taman Velox, Rawang. A local man and his worker also placed chemical stocks at the rented premises. It is believed that the disposal of chemical residue through a sewage hole at the location led to the overflow of the contaminated substance, which led to the pollution. Meanwhile, about 40 barrels containing 40,000 liters of chemical waste have been found during checks by police at a premises in Taman Velox, believed to be the cause of the water pollution in Sungai Selangor. Gombak Police Chief Assistant Commissioner Arifai Tarawi said each barrel could fill 1,000 liters of liquid, with some already emptied. He added the chemistry department is in the midst of sampling the waste.
Didapati satu premis yang telah disewakan sebagai stor untuk menyimpan bahan-bahan yang dipercayai untuk dilupuskan. Dan cara mereka hasil siasatan awal cara mereka melupuskan dengan membuang ataupun melupuskan bahan-bahan yang berjadual ini di dalam satu lubang kumbahan. Inilah yang mengalir ke dalam loji IWK sana.
The premises located about 300 meters from the Indah Water Consortium IWK sewage treatment plant had only been rented 2 weeks ago, while its registered nature of the business has yet to be determined. Based on the findings, authorities have not ruled out sabotage and will continue to probe the case further. 4 water treatment plants in Selangor were forced to shut down due to the pollution incident yesterday, affecting over 1.1 million accounts in 1,279 areas in the state and Klang Valley. Pengurusan Air Selangor Sundaram Berhad said water supply is expected to be fully restored by 3 p.m. today.
Now, in another development, Selangor Exco member He Loy Sian has criticized IWK for not notifying the state government earlier on the chemical discharge, which flowed into its sewage treatment plant in Rawang, causing it to shut down since November 4th. He said IWK only notified the National Water Service Commission on the situation instead.
Akan tetapi, kita hairan pihak negeri tidak dimaklumkan perkara ini. Pihak luas, pihak Air Selangor tidak dimaklumkan perkara ini, dan kalau kita dapat tahu perkara ini, kita akan bertindak dengan segera supaya mencari premis atau kilang yang melakukan semua ini. Sebab itulah ini merupakan kali keempat risiko yang ditimbulkan oleh IWK.
The State Tourism, Environment, Green Technology and Orang Asli Affairs Committee Chairman added that IWK should have been more responsible in managing their sewage treatment plants. He also hoped that Putrajaya would assist the state government in tackling the water issues in the state. The Kajang Assemblyman said this when replying to a question from Bukit Gasing Assemblyman R. Rajiv, who wanted to know the status of water pollution during State Legislative Assembly sitting today. Water supply in the Klang Valley will be fully restored by Friday. Air Selangor Chief Executive Officer Suhaimi Kamrozaman, in a statement today, said that the affected areas would start getting water supply in stages from 3 p.m. today to Friday. He also said the water restoration plans would be divided into two groups, with water supply to the first group comprising 599 areas expected to be fully restored by 3 p.m. tomorrow, whereas the second group, covering 680 areas, will be fully restored by 3 p.m. on November 13th. He added Air Selangor was able to start distributing supply earlier at 1:45 p.m., following the presence of clean water in the distribution system. The company also stressed that the water supplied to the consumers have gone through quality water testing and has met the standards set by the Health Ministry. Additional water supply had also been distributed via 111 water tank trucks to critical premises such as hospitals and dialysis centers, as well as residential areas. Malaysia has recorded 822 new COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours, taking the cumulative number of cases to 42,872. Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah said that 2 more deaths related to the coronavirus were also reported today, both in Sabah.
Makluman negeri Sabah mencatatkan sebanyak 259 kes, iaitu 31.5% daripada keseluruhan jumlah kes positif pada hari ini. Negeri-negeri di Lembah Kelang pula mencatatkan sebanyak 202 kes, iaitu bersamaan dengan 24.6% daripada jumlah keseluruhan kes.
He also said that of the new cases, 7 were imported involving a Malaysian and 6 foreigners who each returned from India, Canada, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, the United Arab Emirates and Russia. Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham also added that 769 more patients have been discharged from hospitals, taking the total number of those who have recovered to 31,073 nationwide, or 72.5% of the total infections. Total active cases stands at 11,497, while the death toll is now at 302. The Health Ministry also recorded 3 new clusters, all in Sabah, namely the Karamunting cluster in Sandakan with 21 positive cases, Saga cluster in Kota Kinabalu with 9 positive cases, and Haven cluster in Lahad Datu with 11 positive cases. Now, in a press conference, Senior Minister for Security, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, revealed that the government decided to enforce the Enhanced Movement Control Order, EMCO, at Medan 88 Bandar Baru Salak Tinggi in Sepang, Selangor, for 2 weeks until November 25th. All standard operating procedures, SOPs, are applicable as previous EMCOs, with all business premises selling basic essentials also allowed to operate.
Pelaksanaan PKPD ini akan melibatkan sebanyak 88 unit rumah kedai, 284 premis dan seramai 800 orang penduduk. PKPD ini bagi membolehkan KKM terus melaksanakan saringan bersasar kepada penduduk di kawasan ini serta mengawal pergerakan bagi tujuan memutuskan rantaian COVID-19.
Datuk Sri Ismail also said the EMCO at the Pulau Pinang Remand Prison and the prison quarters, as well as the Mutiara Kasih apartment and Taman Khazanah Indah in Lahad Datu, have all ended today. The decision to end the EMCO was made as the Health Ministry did not record any new cases at these locations over the past several days. An officer from a telecommunications company has been remanded by the Putrajaya Magistrates Court for allegedly accepting bribes from 3 company directors to divulge customer details to be used for SMS fraud. The remand order for 5 days from today was issued by Magistrate Nur Aisyah Muhammad Yusof this morning to facilitate investigations into the case by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC. The 49-year-old man was detained at the Putrajaya MACC headquarters last night after his statement was recorded by investigators. It was believed that the suspect had accepted bribes amounting to 300,000 ringgit via several bank transactions from a company as inducement for providing the phone numbers of the telco's prepaid mobile plan users from 2017. The information was allegedly used by content provider fraud syndicates by charging subscription fees via SMS without the customer's knowledge and consent. The suspects arrested came following the remand of the three company directors yesterday. The case is being investigated under the MACC Act. Three Malaysians and 6 UNHCR cardholders were today charged at the Bukit Mertajam Magistrates Court with kidnapping 39-year-old Ali Didar for a ransom last month. Now, the 9 men are facing the death penalty or life in prison if convicted for the crime.
All the suspects nodded in understanding of the charge and penalty. However, no plea was recorded from them. Other 6 Myanmar nationals were contract workers, while the Malaysian suspects were unemployed men. Another suspect, who is still at large, was also charged with them over the crime. On October 20th, they allegedly demanded a 300,000 ringgit ransom for the victim. If the death sentence is not imposed, then the accused will also be liable to whipping, while no bail was offered. The judge set December 11th for mention.
When we return, Singapore launches world's first air travel bubble with Hong Kong. Details. Thank you for staying with us. The 42-year-old father, who had been charged with 41 counts of committing sexual crimes against his own daughter from another marriage, was again charged in the Ampang Sessions Court today with another 9 counts of committing unnatural sex and physical sexual assault on the same girl. The accused pleaded not guilty to the fresh charges. He was charged with 6 counts of committing unnatural sex with the girl, who was then 15 years old, at his house in Bukit Antarabangsa between October 19th and 29th. The charges were made under the Penal Code, which provides an imprisonment for up to 30 years and whipping if convicted. He was also charged with 3 counts of committing physical sexual assault on his daughter between September 2019 and March 2020. For that, he faces a maximum 20 years in jail and is liable to whipping if found guilty under the Sexual Offences Against Children Act. The judge denied bail and set December 17th for mention. The bidding for the PPP serial numbers for vehicle registration in Pulau Pinang has set a new record for the Road Transport Department, RTD, collecting 7.2 million ringgit in the revenue from the auction. This surpassed the previous record held by the SYG serial numbers at 3.6 million ringgit. The highest bidding price was for the PPP1 serial number, which was won by a businessman, followed by the PPP9 serial number at 160,000 ringgit.
Hasil keseluruhannya adalah sebanyak 7,257,785 ringgit, iaitu yang tertinggi dalam sejarah EBIT, JPJ EBIT apabila dilancarkan semenjak daripada bulan April tahun lepas. Okey. Amount bidaan tertinggi adalah sebanyak 260,000, iaitu melibatkan siri PPP1.
A total of 315,758 people were registered to bid for the PPP serial numbers during the 5-day auction from November 5th. To date, the RTD has managed to collect 203.88 million ringgit through the implementation of the online bidding system. The collections involved 158 serial numbers for vehicle registration, which were opened to the public and companies for bidding. Malaysia has received the mandate from the Cabinet and necessary approvals to the implementation of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP. Senior Minister cum International Trade and Industry Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Azmin Ali said the agreement, which is set to be signed this Sunday, could also be used as one of the economic recovery tools against COVID-19.
The signing will also send a positive signal to the world that Malaysia, together with the other RCEP countries, has chosen to open our markets instead of resorting to protectionist measures during these difficult times. This is also consistent with the business support measures announced during Malaysia's 2021 budget. No doubt RPCs or RCEP participating countries will be able to ride on the economic value chains that will be generated with this agreement.
He added that Malaysia is ready for the agreement signing, having received the mandate from the cabinet. The government also has carried out engagements on the RCEP with domestic stakeholders, state governments and the cabinet. RCEP comprises 10 ASEAN countries as well as its 5 dialogue partners, namely Australia, China, Japan, South Korea and New Zealand. The entirety of Hong Kong's elected pro-democracy opposition announced their resignation on Wednesday in protest over the expulsion of 4 lawmakers. These lawmakers were Dennis Kwok, Kwok Ka-ki, Kenneth Leong and Alvin Yeung, who had previously been barred from running for re-election this year. The dramatic move came just minutes after Beijing passed a resolution giving local authorities broad new powers to quash dissent or expel those supporting Hong Kong independence. Elected lawmakers can be expelled directly without having to go through the courts. The resolution also refuses to recognize Beijing's sovereignty over Hong Kong and seeks help from foreign countries or foreign forces to interfere in the affairs of the region or commits other acts that endanger national security. The new law will likely leave the political opposition without a voice in one of the city's last major forums for dissent. Travelers from Singapore will be able to travel to Hong Kong for leisure from November 22nd in the first air travel bubble arrangement for the Republic since border restrictions were imposed amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The scheme will start with 1 flight a day into each city with a quota of 200 travelers per flight. Now this will be increased to 2 flights a day from December 7th. Under the new guidelines, there will be no restrictions on the purpose of travel and no requirements for a controlled itinerary or sponsorship. However, travelers must have no travel history to any place outside of Hong Kong or Singapore within 14 days prior to departure. As part of the air travel bubble, travelers between Singapore and Hong Kong will also have to take COVID-19 tests in lieu of serving quarantine or stay-home notices. Singapore Minister for Transport Ong Ye Kung said this travel bubble may be used as a template for other countries if successful. Now coming up after the break, top seed Shapovalov ousted in Sofia Open. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The United States on Tuesday registered a record 200,000 new COVID-19 cases in one day, highlighting the desperate need for a vaccine. With the number of coronavirus cases in the United States skyrocketing, many health experts warned the total number of people hospitalized in a given day would rise too.
On Tuesday, the number of people with COVID-19 at U.S. hospitals for the first time topped 60,000. That's 2,024 more people than were hospitalized on April 15th, the previous record. The total number of new infections this month only surpassed 1 million. It is also the 7th consecutive day of more than 100,000 new cases, with experts warning that those case numbers could double in the coming weeks. California, which sees cases at their highest levels in months, will be announcing more restrictive reopening rules for several counties, while a vaccine is seen as the best chance to break the cycle of deadly virus surges. And Pfizer announcing that it has a vaccine it believes is 90% effective. With the winter coming, about 200,000 more lives could be lost in the U.S. in the next few months. Over in Singapore, a 25-year-old Malaysian man was among the new COVID-19 cases reported on Tuesday. Labeled as case 58,262, the infected Malaysian was last at work as a cleaner on November 2nd. He developed symptoms a day later and sought medical treatment at a general practitioner clinic. He is also the only community case currently unlinked to any previous infections. Singapore reported a total of 9 new cases, taking the infection tally to 58,073. In the meantime, Brazil passed 5.7 million COVID-19 cases as the country reported another 25,012 confirmed infections in the past 24 hours. The official death toll, meanwhile, rose by 201 to 162,829. The South American country has the world's second most fatal outbreak after the United States. Health experts believe this is due to the fact that the country has many marginalized communities that are faced with poor living conditions. More than 300,000 people have died from the virus across Europe, and authorities fear that fatalities and infections will continue to rise as the region heads into winter, despite hopes of a new vaccine. With just 10% of the world's population, Europe accounts for most a quarter of the 1.2 million deaths globally. Britain, which has imposed a fresh lockdown in England, has the highest death toll in Europe at around 49,000. While France, Spain, Italy and Russia have also reported hundreds of deaths a day. Together, the 5 countries account for almost 3/4 of the total fatalities. Further in Kenya, fears of a second wave are rising following a spike in new infections over the past 2 weeks, as the country reported its biggest single-day death toll to 24 since the outbreak began. The nation has suffered less from the virus than many other nations, but the spike came after the government's decision to ease restrictions that were imposed to curb the first wave of the virus. Analysts say that barring a vaccine or cure, Kenya could face multiple peaks over the coming months.
Authorities in the Philippines on Wednesday ordered thousands of residents in eastern coastal communities to evacuate ahead of the arrival of Typhoon Vamco. Vamco is due to make landfall later on Wednesday and is the 21st tropical storm to hit the Philippines this year.
The typhoon is expected to hit the country only weeks it was battered by the most powerful storm recorded anywhere in the world this year. At the current moment, Vamco carries sustained winds of 125 kilometers per hour, while bringing destructive winds at times torrential rainfall. It is forecast to hit rice-producing provinces north of the capital before exiting the Philippines' main island of Luzon on Thursday. Residents in coastal communities who are expecting up to a 3-meter storm surge were ordered to leave their homes, but ensuring the prevention of the spread of COVID-19 in evacuation centers remained a challenge. The Philippines, an archipelago of more than 7,600 islands, usually sees about 20 tropical storms each year.
Peru tabled into political turmoil Tuesday as anger mounted over a vote by Congress to oust the country's popular president over his handling of the pandemic and unproven allegations of corruption years ago. Several politicians not in Congress denounced the ouster as a disguised coup. Now, following the ouster late on Monday, interim President Manuel Merino was sworn in Tuesday morning, and critics fear the latter, who previously sought to turn the military against President Martin Vizcarra and attempted an earlier removal on different grounds in September, will seek to lift those rules. This, in turn, will set up a new period of instability in this nation of 32 million. Thousands poured onto the streets of Peru's capital, Lima, to protest Vizcarra's removal, vilifying lawmakers and demanding their resignations. But the outgoing leader quickly announced he wouldn't pursue any legal challenges, even though he insisted he had committed no crime. His ouster measure was supported by 105 legislators, far more than 87 votes needed for the 2/3 majority required to remove Peru's president. Amid the pandemic, restaurants, hotels, and shops everywhere are coming up with innovative ways to allow customers to have a safe and enjoyable time. And it seems like robot waiters are a possible solution for Japanese cafes to reduce the risk of contagion and resolve staff shortages. Footage of the robot waiters wrap up 7 edition this evening. I'm Otto Othman. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe and good night.